Hamas' bloody raid on southern Israel on October 7 triggered a new horrific bloodshed in the Middle East. Even if Israel's military action in response to the atrocities succeeds in neutralizing Hamas, it will leave behind a stunned, suffering and angry Gaza population. Moreover, war will damage Israel's relations with the Palestinian community at large and their Arab brothers in region. It is difficult to see a positive outcome in this horrific incident of violence. However, it is worth considering whether shock caused by the war will push seemingly intractable Israeli-Palestinian conflict towards a final solution. Could this tragedy, which forces both Israelis and Palestinians to stare into the abyss, be a turning point that will pave the way for lasting peace? Taking this possibility seriously, and looking beyond the horizon more generally, is not just an exercise in wishful thinking. Exploring how current conflagration might pave way for peace could help provide a roadmap for Israelis, Palestinians, and international community to follow once dust settles. For a start, scope and intensity of conflict may lead both Israelis and Palestinians to think they need to break cycle of violence that has plagued region for decades. To be sure, previous outbreaks of conflict have hardened attitudes on both sides over time. For understandable reasons, the Israelis tended to respond to sporadic attacks by the Palestinians by retaliating and imposing strict restrictions on the Palestinian population. This was an approach that evolved in part from Israel's previous history with Gaza. When Israel withdrew from the Gaza Strip in 2005, this only paved the way for Hamas to seize power and launch a series of attacks. This experience, along with continued Palestinian violence in the West Bank, convinced many Israelis that peace efforts aimed at returning more land would be foolhardy and that maintaining the status quo was a much safer alternative. The problem is that the status quo is intolerable and unacceptable to the Palestinians, who see Israel's mix of pressure and diplomatic intransigence as an act of war. Only through active resistance, including violence, can many Palestinians impress upon Israelis that their comfortable status quo is not so comfortable after all. As a result, the Palestinians continue to fight, and the Israelis respond by tightening their repression. Each side blames the other and the cycle of violence continues. Israelis are dismayed by the failure of their country's vaunted national security institutions. Military superiority, deterrent threats, pervasive surveillance, fences, walls and checkpoints. These pillars of Israeli defense policy did nothing to prevent Hamas from slaughtering more than 1,400 people on October 7. Hamas' nihilistic terror brought only widespread death and destruction to Gaza and revealed the need for a change of course. In fact, even before the current spasm of violence, many Gazans were ready for an alternative to